138 years. That's how long it took to bring Morjan to American audiences. Believed to be the oldest existing opera written by a Black American. And behind the music, a rich history that Giovanna Joseph and her daughter Aria Mason mined from obscurity.
One of my earliest memories, I watched my mother watching an opera singer on TV. And I saw her face, I saw the joy and the love in her face. And I was like, what is this?
As founders of New Orleans-based Opera Creole, they've pledged to share music by composers of African descent.
I believe that there's no music that doesn't have Black fingerprints on it.
Other than the sounds, it's so peaceful.
Yeah.
When they discovered a digital copy of Morjan in 2014, Joseph and Mason struck a mother lode, an historic masterpiece by a New Orleans-born composer named Edmond Dede.
When you first caught note, pardon the pun, did you realize the scope of it?
I had just, you know how you get that gut feeling that this was important. I didn't know exactly how important it was.
It was Dede's magnum opus, 545 pages based on themes from Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves.
He takes the Ali Baba stories and he kind of sets it in Arabian Persia, but he does something different with the characters.
A heroine story of a mother, Morjan, and her daughter Amin, who fight against the tyranny of a ruling sultan.
It's kind of a dark comedy because in the third act, fourth act, there's a twist that throws everything off and surprises the sultan. Everybody lives in the end.
Behind the curtain was Dede's remarkable story.
Who was this guy?
Oh, well, you know, I think he's a New Orleans hero.
Edmond Dede was an educated fourth-generation free man of color who wrote over 250 songs, ballets, and orchestral pieces.
This area that we know was the residence of the Dede family at one point in time.
In 1855, on the eve of the Civil War, he left Louisiana for France, where he studied music at the Paris Conservatoire and performed at Bordeaux's Grand Theater.
Not only did he go to France, he went down to Algeria. He wrote music, and one of them in solidarity for the Algerians who didn't want to be subjugated, were being colonized.
So he was somewhat of a revolutionary and
He
activist
was, yes. Yeah.
through his craft.
Yes, absolutely.
But Morjan was never performed, and Joseph hoped to fix that. She found an ally in Patrick Quigley, the artistic director designate of Opera Lafayette in Washington, D.C.
I assumed that someone had performed it or had transcribed it at that point, but to my great surprise, no one had ever really taken it out of manuscript.
The two connected in 2023. Working with musicians and historians from across the country, they set out to bring Dede's never-performed opera to life. First, by transcribing almost 6,000 measures of music into modern notation.
The money that it takes to put all those little notes into the computer, that was the first hurdle to get someone to help invest to do that without knowing anything, you know, never heard it before.
But when they did hear it, Joseph and Quigley knew they had something special.
It's this fabulous combination of so many different styles of music, both European and American, all together in one place.
After years of work, excerpts from Morjan debuted in January at New Orleans St. Louis Cathedral, where Dede was likely baptized and where Taylor White played the role of Amin.
And who is she?
Oh, she is, I feel like the term spitfire can be overused sometimes, but she really is.
And the cultural significance of the moment is not lost on her.
Being able to be a soloist with so many other amazing singers, in a place where a couple of generations ago, I wouldn't have been able to do that. We would have been relegated to these balconies up here.
It's music likely birthed in safe spaces, although segregated, that Dédé and his contemporaries cultivated for themselves.
That is what used to be the Renaissance Theater. It was built as a theater by free people of color in the 1840s.
For their own enjoyment?
For their own enjoyment.
This month, the full-length production of Morjan came to life in Washington at Opera Lafayette.
It was an incredible moment for Washington, D.C., and it was an incredible moment for American music.
And for the composer, though not in his lifetime, who could finally claim a homecoming.
He came back home once, and he came back when Jim Crow was really at its height, and he was not allowed to perform in any of the theaters, and he vowed that he would never come back again.
138 years later, his grand opus did, delighting audiences with another poignant reflection of African American brilliance.
Love this, so spotlighting people of color in opera, but really it's a shame. He had to leave America to soar. And what's really interesting in France, you know, a century before, a West Indian man went to France. He was Chevalier, a Mozart contemporary and rival, who was also this grand composer. So, you know, France really had this opportunity to shine a light on people in art, and it's just a shame that, you know, folks were turned off.
Generations here missed out on it until now.